Hello friends, welcome you all. Today we will start our second unit. So from the second unit we have to achieve our second course outcome, that is design of connection for the given steel joint. That is we have to design the bolted connection and welded connection. So let us start unit number 2, design of steel connections. So the total weightage of this unit is 14 marks and we have to complete it in 10 hours. So what are the points we have to study in this unit? Let us see one by one. First with the types of connections. Okay. Next is bolted connection. We know the types of connection, bolted and welded connection. So from that A part we are going to discuss, that is bolted connection. In that, types of bolted joint, then failure of bolted joint, specification of bolt holes, then design strength of bolt, then grade classification of bolt, and lastly we have to design or analysis and design of actually loaded bolted joints. Then welded connection, that is B part. In that we have to discuss the types of weld, that is butt joint or fillet weld, then specification of fillet weld, then design of fillet weld, and lastly analysis and design of welded connections. So let us start our first point, types of connections. First is bolted and second one is welded connection. One more is there, that is riveted connection, but riveted connection is absolute nowadays because it requires the preheating and more labor for supervision and is noise polluting. Hence, bolted connections are preferred than the riveted connection. So let us see first part, that is bolted connection. Then types of bolts. There are generally two types of bolt, black bolt and high strength bolts. Let us see. Here is the figure given for black bolt. This figure we can use for high strength bolt also, because only the difference between the dimensions. Here we can see this is the shank area, this plain area we can call as shank, this is the threaded portion, and this is the total length of that bolt. Okay, this is nut. Okay, and this is bolt head. D is representing the nominal diameter of that bolt. uh, the dimension, that is top head 1.65 d is the nominal diameter, and this bracket value indicate for the high strength bolt for nuts and bolts. Okay, so here we can see the dimensions for both black bolt and high strength bolt. Let us see first black bolt. What is black bolt or how it is made? It is made from mild steel rod. Black bolts are generally ordinary and rough unfinished bolt and commonly used. They are least expensive one. Then it is used for the light structures like purling, bracing, etc. under the static loads. Then it is not recommended for the connections subjected to the impact or dynamic loads. Okay, so it is used only for light structures. Here we can see the black bolt with rough unfinished bolts is there. Okay, so second one is the high strength bolts. It is also called as friction grip bolt. It is made up of medium carbon steel. Okay, then it is identified by the class identification symbol, that is 8.8s or 10.9s, etc. This suffix s is indicates that the high strength bolt of hexagonal head. Okay, then it does not allow the slip between the connected members, and load transferred by friction only, therefore we can call it as high strength grip bolt. Okay, and it is used for high rise building, bridges, machine, etc. Here we can see the high strength bolts. These 10.9s is embossed on this hexagonal head. For this is the class identification symbol of that bolt. So let us see the advantages of bolted connection over welded connection. First, we required unskilled labor and simple tools for bolted connection. In case of welded connection, we required the skilled labor for welding and also required the complex tools. Second one is the no specialized equipment is required. Like in welded connection, we required the safety glasses, helmets, then the gloves. Such equipment is not required in case of bolted connections. Okay. Next is fast progress of work. as we know we have to only tighten the bolts, nut bolts, therefore the progress of work is fast. Next, it is noiseless and the quick fabrication is done. Next is minor discrepancies in dimensions get eliminated. Okay, means somewhat discrepancies happen in the connection, it get eliminated easily, which is not in case of welded connections. Next is the connection support loads as soon as the bolts are tightened. Okay, for welding, for welding purpose we require, we wait for some time for cooling the welding. So it is not case in voltage connection. Next is few persons are required for making the connection, thus cost is reduced. Okay, we can use the unskilled labor, so therefore the requirement of person is less, and therefore it is reduce the overall cost of project. Okay, so next is no heating is required or no electricity is required for bolted connections. Next is due to the high strength less number of bolts are required, therefore the gusset plate sizes are reduced. In case of welded connections the gusset plate sizes are more. Okay, and lastly it is easy to dismantle and reuse the material. We know the bolted connections can be easily dismantled one, and wherever we required we can use these members. Okay, so these are all the advantages of bolted connection over welded connections. Next point is types of bolted joints. There are two types of bolted joints. First is lap joint, second one is butt joint. So let us see first lap joints. Lap joints means one plate is connected over other. Okay, here we can see one plate is connected over other by using the bolting or welding. We can call as lap joint. Okay, this lap should not be exceed 4 times the thickness of thinner plate or 40 whichever is minimum. If we are using the single chain bolting, then you can call as single bolted lap joint, and if we can use the double chain bolting, then we can call as double bolted lap joint. Okay, here we can use the zigzag bolting also. Next is butt joint. Here we can see in butt joint the members or the main plates are connected by using the cover plate on one side or both sides. Okay, if the cover plates are used for one side of the main plates to connect the joint, then we can call as single cover single bolted butt joint, and the cover plate used on both sides of the joint, then we can call as double cover double bolted butt joint. Next is the failure of bolted joints. There are generally three types of failure happen in bolted joints: shear failure, tension failure or tensile failure, or bearing failure. Again, shear failure is of two types. First is shear failure of bolt, and second one is shear failure of plate. In shear failure of bolt, here we can see in this figure, this is the shear failure of bolt. Okay, shear stress are generated when the plate slip due to the applied force. The maximum factor shear force in the bolt may exceed the nominal shear capacity of bolt, means this is the shearing plane. Okay, if the bolt is fail in this shearing plane, we can call as shear failure of bolt. This is when this is happen if the this strength shear strength of bolt is less, then this type of failure is happen. Second type of failure is plate failure, shear failure of plate. Okay, when the strength of plate is less than the shearing strength of bolt, then the tearing or shear failure of plate may occur. Okay, if this plate having the less strength as compared to this bolt, then this type of failure happen. Or the edge distance is less. Okay, minimum edge distance is not provided, then also this type of failure is happen. So avoid this failure, we can use the minimum edge distance we should provide, or the size of or thickness of this plate we can increase. Okay, next is the tensile failure of bolt or tensile failure of plate. Tensile failure of bolt is subjected to the tensile force fails if factor tensile force is greater than the tensile capacity of bolt, means if the tensile force applied on this bolt is greater as compared to the tensile capacity of this bolt, then this type of failure is happen. Okay, but this type of failure is rarely happen because the strength of bolt, tensile strength capacity of bolt is much higher. Okay, second one is tensile failure of plate. Tensile failure of plate occurs when the bolts are stronger than the plates. Okay, bolts are generally stronger than the plate. Therefore, this type of failure is happen. Tensile failure of plate, or we can also call as tearing failure of plate. Next is bearing failure of bolt and bearing failure of plate. Okay, the bolts is crushed around half circumference. Okay, here we can see bolts are failure half circumference. Okay, the plate may be strong bearing in the heaviest stress plate may press the bolt shank due to the opposite forces of plates, and if the plate material is very strong as compared to this bolt, this type of bearing failure may occur. Or if the plate material is not stronger than the bolt material, then this type of plate bearing failure of plate is happen. When an ordinary bolt is subjected to shear force, the slip takes place and bolts comes in contact with the plate. The plates may be crushed if the plate material is weaker than the bolt material. If this plate material is weaker than this bolt material, these bolts may shift or maybe slip of failure happen. Here we can see the total three types of failure. Shear failure of bolt. Here we can see it can be overcome by using providing more bolts or bigger size of bolt. Second, shear failure of plate. It can be avoided by using the edge distance. We can increase or thicker plates use. Then the tensile failure of plate. This type of failure occur in tensile failure, but it is rarely happen. Then tensile failure of plate. Then bearing failure of bolt. Okay, here we can see the bearing failure of bolt or bending failure of bolt. Two plates are for tensile force on left side and one plate having the force on right side, then this type of bending or bearing is happen. This is the bearing failure of plate. To avoid this bearing failure, we can use the thicker plate, so we can avoid this failure. So this is all about today's lecture. In next lecture, we are going to discuss the different terminology related to the bolted connection. So hope you understand today's points. Thank you.